All readers should be aware of the full context to appreciate this disgraceful behavior. My father created the Senate, created them to oppose the tyranny of Rome and administer the territory he conquered, the territory that belonged to him. He split his powers in two to create the consuls, still above the Senate, and when their will is shared, unopposable in authority. But the Senate gets other ideas. Exploiting the chaos caused by the wars and famines of the territories abroad, they go behind my back, our backs, to make their own ill-planned will into reality, with no thought for the legal or spiritual consequences. And what have we seen? Worship of the gods declines, with all kinds of watery, distant deities being invoked across our lands, even in Britannia now. We've seen rebellion after rebellion, hungry mouth after hungry mouth, apparently without end. And are they using their wealth and resources to aid our people? No. It is I who protects Britannia, Constans and Aurelianus who protect Thracia, Uther who protects Gaul. The sons of Constantinus have carried their father's legacy on, but no longer receive the awe and recognition that he used to create an entirely new, prospering empire. They afford only Tullus and his veterans to serve us, and they order him to conquer rather than control, for their greed has become exceptional in these many months without challenge. The world may have avoided destruction, but fairness, honor, a noble rule of the gods, these things so vital to life are missing without hope of recovery. Not so long as the Britannian Empire's heroes go unrewarded. I have thought long and hard on how to act to save us all from their hubris. The very nature of the situation makes actions on my part difficult, but I assure you, dear reader, that I have concluded a plot to solve this problem and the problem of taking revenge for the man who murdered my son at the same time. Hello there, welcome back to Fields of Mars. Last time we saw Theodosius getting killed when the navies of the Gepids finally caught up to him and he was completely overwhelmed by their forces, but his sacrifice had done a lot of damage to the enemy. Then we saw a Gepid army attacking at Tremontium. We were able to kill their really high-level general, but they did successfully win the battle, although they didn't take the settlement. Tullus counterattacked, taking the settlement of Dyrrachium from the Gepids. Then we saw the Caledonians appear for some revenge over in Iberia. Unfortunately, their forces were mostly war dogs, so they were easy to surround and take out, so they were defeated there. Then the Gepid army in Thracia went on to attack Marcianopolis. It was a difficult battle, and it looked like we were going to lose until the enemy general suddenly died and things turned back into our favour. Tullus continued his counterattack, creating a new state of Illyria in the Gepids territory, and finally we wiped out the Caledonians once and for all using Uther's army. So now let's continue. We're starting this episode off with a couple of actions against rebellions. First, this one, which I didn't expect. The army of Illyria, the state that I just created, comes down into Macedonia to take out a rebellion that's just spawned there. I had actually planned to leave this rebellion, but might as well take this opportunity to go out. We're sending the garrison of Dyrrachium to help in this battle, and they're going to be destroyed, so it'll probably just happen again since the public order is so bad, but at least let's put it off a little bit. And then we have a much bigger rebel attack at Octogeron. So it's a full stack against our basically full stack garrison. Both sides have suffered from attrition. Ours was from famine, theirs from winter attrition most likely. So the balance bar is even, meaning we can't just auto-resolve it and guarantee a win here. They've got lots of siege equipment and heavy cavalry, a pretty nice army, but with trash infantry as the rebel armies usually do. So the question was, what will they do with all these onagers? And the answer is nothing, which is perfect for us. They are just going to sit here. They're actually out of range and stuck in this forest, so they didn't even move them up after that either, so they basically decided they're not going to use the onagers and just made a normal attack, which is absolutely perfect from our perspective, though a little disappointing, of course, in terms of wanting the AI to do something good. Anyway, so they're piling in, sending all their cav against my spear unit there, very kind of them again, and we've got the other angles covered, including a barricade to do the Legio dart trick here, ready to hit them. Apparently I'm being ambushed by my own troops there, according to the aid, very kind. Now here's something that went a little bit wrong. I sent my cavalry to go take out those onagers, but I gave them waypoint movement orders, which makes them stop occasionally. They had to have waypoints to go around the enemy's advancing army, and every time they stopped, the onagers actually pounded them. The timing was perfect, and we took big losses on both of the cavalry units. Really didn't expect that. Doesn't necessarily matter. The onagers will now go down, and the cavalry can still inflict the same morale shock even if there's just 1 or 2 men left in the unit, so it doesn't hugely matter for the progression of the battle, but still a shame and not something I expected to see there. They've got these Cairo ballistas, which we'll also need to take out. Right now they're doing nothing, just like the onagers, so that is great, giving us lots of time to go over and kill them. Meanwhile, their main attack isn't going particularly well because they're all just stuck against my units who are sitting there in stationary to Studio, which gives them this mass bonus, so they basically can't be moved and just halts the battle entirely. They've got some hurlers back there, probably hitting their own men, which is quite nice. And more cavalry there, losing in the centre to our spear units. All great, it's going to be taking them out. This unit of Limitani border guard is going to have literally no chance against this Legio once they eventually destroy that barricade and start the melee, so that's great. And they've got a unit of crossbows outside the town, which has been left on its own, so they're going to get taken out by my cavalry. Plus the arrival of some spare Legio is going to help there, probably throwing half those darts into my own horsemen, but oh well, we shall be taking those crossbows out presently. The next easy target was those slingers who started running out into the open as my cavalry came. I think the skirmishing is messing up and it's going in my favour. We absolutely annihilate them. A smash from both sides with the Scout Equites units wipes out the entire unit pretty much straight away. Absolutely hideous for those slingers, and now we're going to have a nice chance to rear attack the main bulk of their army here, though we don't really need to because it's just losing on its own. All these cavalry units being completely ineffective, and we're about to surround them as well. The enemy's general actually wasn't in there. He was off somewhere else, attacking one other direction to the east of the town, I think, and he manages to die somewhere, which causes the rest of his army to rout, and they routed while completely surrounded by our army, so that is great, especially since this is a rebellion, because we want to really destroy the army as much as we can. There's the general over there fighting under that tower, so yes, we want to get the units down to as weak a state as possible to minimize the chance the rebellion will survive and just come back in a couple of turns with the same army. So here's the battle result. We pretty much decimated it. 2 units going to escape, so they probably will come back soon enough, but perhaps it's going to be about the same amount of time until the next rebellion would have happened anyway. I accidentally took on warriors there. I should have sold the captives as slaves in order to get some money, but oh well, just force of habit. So now we're switching back over to Constans, who's pushing against the capital of the Gepids. Finds it very lightly defended, so he can just storm in and annihilate the tiny army there. And this region is on its own. The rest of the province that it's in has already been raised, presumably by the Huns, although we don't really know. So we have to decide what to do with this region. It's going to be really difficult to hold because of all the desolation, and it serves as a distraction. It's on the wrong side of our core territory of Thracia from the Sassanids, so it would be very resource intensive to actually hold this position.
What is this strange turn of heart these people have taken? For generations they harass the Empire, kill our people, steal our lands. Now suddenly, when the consequences of these crimes emerge, they demand that they be treated like citizens, afforded the Empire's defences, afforded the Empire's food to replace the fields they no longer care to tend. The gods surely seek here to set precedent on the question of where mortals will set the limits of their forgiveness. Well, Jupiter, well, barbarians, the answer is that it is some distance back from where we find ourselves now. We will set this example in terms that cannot be mistaken. Tell every centurion that I want smoke, I want fire, and I do not wish to see this treacherous town on a map ever again.
Time for a tactical raising. So that's going to remove the issue once and for all. We're no longer going to be attacked from Romula, nor will we have to put up with the infinite supply of rebellions we would get if we actually occupied it without leaving a full stack there the entire time and thus taking it off the front line. So basically, that is a situation where raising a settlement can be quite useful. It also establishes the river as our border, which is quite nice. Now, the Gepids have armies and fleets all over the place in the Mediterranean, and none of them are really doing anything. They've been moving at random for the last couple of turns, and they are going to continue to be doing that, not making any attacks, so that's great. Now, those survivors from the rebellion earlier, who I was so worried about coming back with a new army, actually just come back under a new general who has somehow convinced them to try that attack again, and that doesn't work, so I don't really know what happened there, just a fail in general. Now Tullus needs to come back over to Italia, both to defend against the potential that the Gepids might make an attack, and more importantly to actually make attacks against the Gepids, because this war will allow us to retake northern Italia and secure more of the core Roman provinces which the Gepids currently hold on to. So we're just about able to sail on over to Tarentum, and we can move on from there to go towards northern Italia, but the potential issue is that the Lakhmids actually have an army down here in Sicily. I don't know what it's doing. Currently it's doing nothing, and it's been there for a while, but I'm becoming increasingly aware that it might do something. And what I can actually do here is bring Tranquilius down. He was guarding Rome in Tullus's absence, and I can start bringing his small army down to add to the garrison at Syracuse, which otherwise is very small and will just be wiped out if the Lakhmids actually attack. Now we get a request from Pontus, our puppet state, to come and attack the Eastern Roman separatists, and they'll pay for it. So that's the separatists that control their old territory that we originally gave them when we created that faction. And I realised that actually there's not much else to do around Thracia. We've got it pretty secured now, so we might as well take on this offer in order to give us an excuse to actually start going and expanding into the Anatolian Peninsula. So we do accept that deal. Now we get news that some random governor is defaming Aurelianus, and we have the option to have Constans step in order to stop this from happening. But I decided that Constans might not actually care. He may wish to see Aurelianus taking down a peg anyway, so he's going to let it happen. And that actually further reduces our control over the Senate, making our family less powerful. You can see we have basically no control. The Senate doesn't give a damn what our family think, but we do control pretty much all of the military resources in the factions. So ultimately what the Senate thinks doesn't matter at this stage. So Tranquilius manages to make it to Syracuse. The Lakhmid still just not doing anything, and there he can recruit up a load of Western Auxilia Palatina to give his army some power in the defense. Meanwhile, Tullus is moving north, and he can actually reach Ravenna right now, but there is a full stack inside defending it, plus it's a walled settlement. Nothing too special about the garrison, but it would be a costly attack to go in there, so I'm going to move back now and see if perhaps we can get that garrison to either leave or come out and fight us in a field battle, and then we'll be able to take it more easily. So Constans, with nothing else to do, can indeed go and attack these separatists just outside Constantinopolis. So I'm just going to go and lay siege to them for now. An interesting thing I noticed here is that even though it's an Eastern Roman separatist faction, all of their units are the Eastern style in the vein of the Sassanids. They all have these desert spears and desert levy, except for their generals. A little bit of a weird mashup there. And now I can just tell Pontus to go and attack that settlement as well and leave it under siege. So hopefully Pontus will come over and back me up in that attack. Aurelianus, meanwhile, who's not really needed, is basically trying to repair everything over in Dardania, the province with Serdica in it, which we took, which is going to have constant rebellions unless we can recolonize the other regions in it. So that's what we're doing right now. The other region is Scupi, is held by the Dacians, so we can't do anything about that. But 2 regions is usually enough to get something stable going. But Constans is in trouble now because the Sassanids have taken note that he's set foot on their side of the sea, and now they are going to attack him mercilessly. They bring in 2 stacks, including this stack led by a super high level commander, and they're going to be reinforced by the Eastern Roman separatists. So very, very difficult situation for Constans here. I just took the opportunity to look at what the Sassanids have. Loads of counterfracts, crossbow cav, and even elephants. Lots of very powerful units coming in, especially in that second army, and we've already seen the other 2 separatist armies are just the Eastern trash units, but they've got a lot of them. So anyway, we're going to retreat, and I presumed he would retreat into Constantinopolis, but no, he does one of these glitchy retreats where he actually runs through all of those enemy armies and puts himself in a really dangerous situation. Fortunately, though, the Sassanids decide to leave him to it and don't hound him anymore, so we really get away with it there. That was a close one. He has his movement points taken away by a load of agents in the end turn sequence, so we can't really escape from this situation, but I can get a little bit further away and come and sit with Asia, the ally we created nearby, to have a little bit of safety. Now Aurelianus continues his push outwards towards another Gepid settlement. I just wanted to take it so that there were no more Gepids in the area. There's basically a big buffer zone now of desolate settlements between us and the next factions to the north of Thracia and that general region. So it's going to be pretty quiet around here from now on. Taking this settlement, this is another case where I could potentially do a tactical raid, but I decided that's both against Aurelianus' character and in this case not necessarily needed, because these walled settlements can be held against constant rebellions quite well. So we'll try and Romanize it and make something of this province of Pannonia.
I just want to stay away from it all. The big cities are full of people who don't even want to be in the Empire, and perhaps most of all that includes the Senate chamber in Londinium. At least out here, in these deserted war zones, there are people who are grateful to see us, you know? People who take life seriously. They don't care what stupid nonsense the Senate's cronies are writing about me in the back streets. They just care that they can get food, troops, and leaders who don't get themselves killed. Speaking for myself there, of course, not Constans. He's out on a limb trying to prove some point about how noble he is to the people of Pontus, even though Constantinopolis is on the verge of collapse. No wonder, for he sets such a bad example. With Tullus, I decided to switch focus from Ravenna to Florentina, which is the actual region we need to take because it's in Italia, the province which has a Roman Neapolis in it. So taking this will complete the set, and there is pretty much no defence from the Gepids, so we'll just step in and occupy that settlement right away. Finally unifying the province we started taking a long time ago. That reveals that the Gepids have an army up at Genua, so we'll have to stay on our guard because it could come down and easily retake it until we've finished re-establishing a proper Roman settlement there to get the garrison going. And now Constans is in trouble because those Sassanid armies eventually decided they would come over and pursue him, engaging him in battle just outside our allied settlement. I thought the allies might come in, but they must not actually be at war with the Sassanids, as it turns out, because they don't come to help us with their garrison or fleet. So we'll just retreat anyway, since we don't need to fight this battle, and go sit in our own territory, and the Sassanids aren't able to pursue, so that settles that issue for now. The Gepids continue floundering around the Mediterranean, just moving fleets around the place. Their main force currently taking sea attrition because it's too far away from the coast. Overall, no coordinated actions coming here, so it looks like we'll just continue to ignore the potential of them attacking us. The Roman separatists offer peace, and they will pay for it, and I thought this was actually quite an attractive deal, both because we could use the money, and because we're probably not actually going to be able to attack that Roman separatist faction until we get more forces ready, since the Sassanids are prowling, and those Sassanids right now actually try and come into Thracia. I'd set Constans up in a fortified stance on the choke point to stop them coming in without having to do this battle, and they're going to try and do it. The balance bar is roughly even though they have double our numbers because they have a lot of trash spearmen in their armies. But they do also have a lot of heavy cataphracts, they have elephants, and of course they have plenty of crossbow, cav, regular horse archers and skirmishers, which is the complete counter to our heavy infantry based army. We are going to have the fort on our side though, which will reduce the effectiveness of those measures. So let's see what we can do here. We're of course just going to set all of our infantry up in the entrances to the fort to force the enemy to attack them from the front, and we've also got anti-cavalry defences deployed around many of the entrances to reduce the effectiveness of the enemy's cataphracts or elephants. In first came all of the skirmish horse archers and crossbow cav, who are able to just sit at range and pepper our troops. I'm putting all my men into stationary testudos this time. This means we won't be able to use our javelins against incoming foes, but this will massively reduce the damage we'll take to crossbow cav, and if we weren't in testudo we would lose this battle pretty much immediately, I can assure you. Now their elephants came in ahead of their main force. Fortunately they ran through my anti-cavalry stakes, which damages their units, but they are going to make it to my legionaries, who will now have to fight in melee with the elephants. At least they didn't get properly charged because the enemy were effectively stopped when they reached the stakes. The good news is that our archers back here just behind the legionaries can now just rain fire on those elephants, and they're pretty big targets, so it should help reduce the friendly fire here for shooting into effectively our own men. And they're going to go down pretty fast actually. The elephants don't have much health when it comes to taking ranged fire because there's only a few of them in the unit. Each one gets hit by tons of arrows, so they go down super fast, and our legionaries end up taking pretty much no damage from that elephant attack. So one of the most deadly weapons in the enemy's army has just been negated right off the bat. They still of course have their billions and billions of crossbow cav, some of them being really brazen, just walking up to stand right in front of our men and shooting them at point blank range to maximize their accuracy. At least they're getting hit by a little bit of returning fire from our archers, and the towers doing most of the work in slowly reducing the enemy's numbers while they just sit there expending their ammo against our legionaries. They are going to start doing damage because even that stationary testudo is not completely immune to missile fire, so slowly we're starting to take losses, but it's a relatively favourable exchange to lose small amounts of the unit to just deny the crossbow cav their ammunition, and of course slowly get them killed due to that tower fire. So we'll just keep that that going. Meanwhile, the rest of their army, all the cataphracts, trash spears and camels, are just piling mostly into this one entrance where I've got a single unit of legionaries, which is somehow holding back that massive Moshi crowd. The AI does love to make its Moshi attacks there, sending reinforcements on the off chance they do get through. A few troops coming to attack here on the south side as well, supported by a lot of the crossbow cav in this particular sector. And we've got a couple of units trying to hold them off as well. We're going to be doing really well in the melees against all of those spear troops and the cataphracts since they're stuck. But again, it's just going to be the crossbow cav. They're raining arrows on this situation. You can see my reserve units just getting taken out, even though it's also in a stationary testudo, just being annihilated by the sheer weight of fire that the crossbow cav are able to put on us, because there's so many of them. Not very nice. And you can see behind the unit there's a lot of bodies on the floor just behind them. I was starting to think maybe some friendly fire could have happened here. Archers certainly are able to do friendly fire in these fort battles, and the towers as well. Even the towers on the other side of the fort will occasionally shoot all the way across into the backs of your own men, and you can't turn them off, so pretty inconvenient. So you can see I've got a couple of free units coming out to do some flank attacks, and all of my cavalry are now setting up ready for a rear attack on the main blob of the enemy's forces, basically waiting for them to be weak enough that an attack by the cavalry will rout them, because I don't really want our cav to fight their cav, because theirs is significantly better. Got a couple of units taking out these hurlers, which is actually somewhat dangerous, not because of the hurlers themselves, but because attacking them takes us near to all of the enemy's horse archers and crossbow cav, who will switch focus onto them, and they will annihilate our cav very quickly. Even got some foot archers there to help out. These hurlers just nearby turned to attack my flanking group, and I told those guys to just go into stationary testudo and tank all this fire. I want to absorb those stones, because you'll take a lot of losses just charging at hurlers, especially charging with all those crossbow cav behind, who will continue the skirmishing even if we do catch the hurlers in a melee. The skirmishers behind from my side are going to try and go around to the flank and hit those hurlers with javelins, but it's not really happening. They're already taking big losses from the hurler fire, and going around to the flank causes them to actually be intercepted by the crossbow cav, because my cavalry started making them skirmish back. Overall, it's all going badly. We lost half the Matiarii unit, so I just gave up. I'd never actually seen an elephant. Father told me about them. They used to be a common thing in old Rome. They'd perform in arenas, fight for the title of king of beasts, or even fight men. Something disappointing about the reality of it, though, isn't there? Just a big fat horse. You'll see it coming a mile away, no chance for surprise. You can shoot it down with ease if you've got enough fingers to draw a bow, or the arm to throw a pointy stick. And I bet they eat 5 times their weight in grain every day for their services. For the best that such creatures have been lost to our shows then, for people would just get mad with the disappointment. Now the crossbow, there's a beast of war to be reckoned with. Now it's time for us to inflict some damage with ranged fire. We've got some more Matiarii who've come behind the main blob that the enemy have here, where they will have a great time just throwing javelins into it with extreme accuracy, because you can't miss when you're throwing into this, with camels and infantry basically covering every possible square inch of the area they're throwing into. They're always going to hit something, and that's going to have a massive effect on their kill rate. We can expect hundreds of kills coming from those Matiarii using their ammunition up on those enemies. Meanwhile, I sent some mercenary Germanic horsemen to just scare off the crossbow cav to allow my other Matiarii to escape from them, and that of course forces them to be sacrificed, because you simply cannot attack crossbow cav with other cav. They get cut down on the way. Another unit of cav uses the opportunity to try and take out some enemy archers, but their morale proves impossible to break, even killing most of them. They only finally rout after I leave. I had to get out of there because of the enemy's crossbow cav returning, of course. So we can see enemy units starting to rout out of the main blob as the casualties start to mount, and I'm really just waiting for a chance to go in and finish them off with a melee attack. But first I decided to fold in my units that were going to go and outflank them in order to just receive more crossbow cav shots, because I thought going around the outside of the fort to make that rear attack with infantry would cause casualties that were too high due to crossbow fire. And here you can see a tragic event. I ordered these guys into stationary testudo, but they're facing the wrong way, so now they're taking that crossbow fire, and you can see just how quickly that fire demolishes the unit. Each volley taking out 10 to 20 troops, and coming in so regularly as well. These guys are insane. They're like a mounted javelin unit, only with massive range and a faster reload. They really can't be stopped, these crossbow cav.
Luckily, I think they actually ran out of ammo at exactly this moment, so they weren't able to finish off this unit of spear cohort. I also noticed and told them to turn around and reform the Testudo, not that they really need to anymore, so that was tragic. We basically just lost like 2/3 of a unit in a few moments due to just a small error. Very deadly indeed. Meanwhile, the rest of my forces here on the western side of the fort have finally made their attack. We've got cavalry and a few spare infantry piling in to just completely shatter the large majority of the enemy's army here. It's tempting to escape, but not doing it very well. A lot of them trying to escape through the fort itself to go out of the other entrance, which is also guarded by my own troops, so that's not really going to work. Constans coming in with the reserves to join the slaughter as we just annihilate these enemies who are completely exposed and out in the open, trying to force their way through our own men here. Some of them going a little bit of a superior route by trying to come outside of the fort before escaping, but still not really going to work because they are so surrounded. Even the Mastiarii are coming in for some fun in melee there. We don't really need to finish off this army because this was a defensive battle that has no potential for a counter-attack, so absolutely annihilating the army doesn't really have any effect because the next time we see them they will have had time to replenish whatever we do. So that's the end of the battle, a heroic victory. Let's take a look at the full results here. We lost a couple of hundred troops, but our army overall is still in okay condition, which we can't say for the Sassanid force. That first army being almost entirely eradicated, down to 2 half-dead units. The second army in better condition, but still so beaten up that it won't be able to fight for a long time. So overall, this is great. We can also take on so many warriors that half our casualties are immediately healed after that fight, and because we're in the unturn sequence, we'll get our regular replenishment, which will probably get most of the rest healed as well. But still, despite these big victories, we're still no closer to actually doing any lasting damage to the Sassanids. With military influence over the Senate at an all-time low, the nobles of Londinium gained an opportunity to further escape the shadow of Julianus. They began planning a full shift in the centre of Britannian administration, from Londinium to Rome. There they would enjoy the protection and service of magistrates more divorced from the influence of the 4 sons of Constantinus, in particular putting them within the stomping ground of their own consul, Tullus. Only Julianus was without other pressures to distract him, but he was ultimately powerless to stop them, despite the law stating otherwise. Britannia would be left with its own shadow senate, filled quickly by lesser nobles left behind by the transfer of power. And Rome, once again, would become the centre of a growing world empire. Thank you so much for watching. Constans will be forced to take a little trip. We'll see Tullus single-handedly fighting the war with the Gepids, and we'll have the return of an old enemy causing us a decent amount of trouble in the next episode of Fields of Mars.